Good afternoon, Corona Days Professional Development Group. It's me, Danette Edwards, and I am here this afternoon. Thank you all. I don't know, I can't see who's on there, but thank you all for joining. This afternoon, we are continuing our Professionals of Excellence series, where Corona Days Professional Development Group is highlighting Black, Latinx, disabled, Asian, Pacific Islander veterans, diverse ethnicities, women, and making it easier for corporations and businesses to engage diverse talent. So this afternoon, we have Powerhouse Pivots is going to be presented by Anniedi Essien. And she's a health distributor, disruptor, and keynote speaker. She's going to talk about her own career in reinvention, overcoming burnout, work-life harmony. A little about Anniedi. From climbing the corporate ladder in the concrete jungle to launching a wellness startup in the Queen City, Anniedi has gone from dream job to dream life. Anniedi is the Chief Swagger Officer, health disruptor, and keynote speaker who empowers busy professionals to lead healthy, wealthy, and fulfilling lives. For over 20 years, she has developed corporate wellness solutions for as a trusted advisor for leading global brands such as GE and Walmart. Her work on social determinants of health has been recognized by the American Association for World Health Organization. After hitting burnout as a top corporate healthcare executive and getting laid off from her dream job, Anniedi got fired up by taking charge of her own life, reigniting the sparkle in her eyes and designing a dream life. Today, Anniedi is CEO and founder of Idem Spark, where she is on a mission to revolutionize wellness and grow leaders into rock stars by pumping up the volume on their swagger. Anniedi holds a BA in biomedical ethics from Brown University and an MBA in strategy from NYU Stern School of Business. Her motto is, life is a song, your body is the instrument, play it like no one is watching. I'm going to bring Anniedi up on the screen. And today, guys, Anniedi would like an interactive chat. So here we go. How are you?
Hi, Danette.
How are you?
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So before I get into our quick questions, our fun questions, and guys, you know these questions, you're supposed to be jotting down some answers because there'll be giveaways during this series. So can you tell us what Idem Spark means?
Absolutely. So my family is Nigerian, and the word Idem means body in the BBO language. And so it was really important for me to create a space where folks of every shape, shade, and size were truly welcome to thrive. And so Idem Spark is the wellness community for rockstar executives. And as you mentioned, we empower busy professionals to reclaim their health, spark their joy, and rock their careers with swagger. So that's a little bit of backstory.
I love it. All right, so I have our quick questions. So the rules here are, I'm just going to give you two things. You have to pick one.
Okay.
There are 5 questions now, 2 at the end. For one of them, you can say both. And guys, Anniedi doesn't know these questions, so I don't give them in advance. All right. So I do a little vetting as much as I can when I have time. So Dance Theater of Harlem or New York City Ballet?
Oh, Dance Theater of Harlem.
Hiking or hot yoga?
Hiking. I like to be out in nature.
This is an easy one. Bracelets or earrings?
Oh, I have to have my powerhouse earrings. People say power suits, but in the pandemic, when it's only shoulder up,
yes,
what you can. So definitely, earrings I'm all about it.
I love it. All right, so I ask almost everyone this question: are you an Apple Mac girl or a PC girl?
Mac all day.
Okay, all right. I'm a PC girl, but I may need to pivot because my computer crashed about 3 weeks ago. Yeah, so.
Sorry to hear that.
All right, so I won't ask that one. So Ghana or Kenya?
I have to say Ghana, only because my last name is Essien. It's a Nigerian last name, but also Ghanaians have that same last name. A little bit of rivalry about who was first. Don't get me into whose jollof rice is better. I don't want to get into trouble today. Okay.
Oh yeah, I have my own take on whose jollof is better, but I'm not gonna make any. Yeah, I used to live in Kenya, so I have to pick Kenya.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, guys. So that's our first 5. I am going to turn it over to Anniedi. She would like an interactive presentation. So, guys, drop comments and questions into the chat. So I'm turning it over. I'm going to remove myself. Anniedi, when you want your slide deck up, just let me know.
Thank you. You're welcome to pull them up, Danette, if that makes it easier. Absolutely. So thank you everyone for the opportunity to share a little bit about my journey on how I was able to plan a powerhouse pivot, even in the middle of a pandemic. So I'm going to share probably the pivot that I'm most excited about and most proud of to start off, right? So here we go. So this is my why. This is my why. My mother, Elizabeth, she was diagnosed with cancer my senior year in college. And so I often say that my career started well before I had my first job because that really changed for me. It was really the experience, that phone call that I got, right? That changed everything. It brought everything into perspective for me about what mattered most, right? So as soon as I graduated, I moved home to become her caregiver, right? And that experience of watching her navigate the health system, which at that time was less than human-centered, right? It was less than an easy experience for her to go through. And I noticed something. I noticed that the folks who shared space with her, the folks who shared a room with her, if they didn't have family members to help navigate through the system, they were left to fend for themselves, right? And so that really sparked in me a desire to say, after she passed away, how do we fix a broken health system? How do we make it more human, right? How do we make it so that nobody else has to go through this same experience? So I started on my journey. I call this the road to swagger, right? As Danette mentioned, I had an opportunity to study biomedical ethics at Brown University. But beyond that theory, I was really excited about career development. So I took a role, I had a role, one of my first jobs really in college was to work in our Office of Career Services. And I got really keen on, what it was that made me tick, right? How to figure out what lights you up. I started to do those assessments. You've probably done them, Myers-Briggs or other assessments where you get to learn a little bit about your leadership style. And I realized that I was easily bored, right? I loved a challenge. I loved different ways to use my gifts and talents, right? And so it was natural for me to really think about pursuing a path in consulting, right? Because in consulting, you get to solve all different types of challenges, right? So early in my career, I spent the bulk of my career in operations roles in healthcare, right? I have a 20-year background in health and wellness. The early part of my career was in operations roles with large corporations, right? Large companies like GE, right? Doing corporate wellness solutions for their employees. So this was about how do we take good care of our people? Then I decided, okay, ready to move to New York. I grew up in upstate New York, Albany, and I wanted to move to the big city, all right? So I wanted to be all about that concrete jungle. Got a role with a regional health insurance company. And this was all about shifting from a culture of no to a culture of yes, right? So this is back in the day when folks, were saying, we don't want anything to do with you if you have pre-existing conditions. Now we were shifting the culture and saying, we want to design products and services around your specific needs. And so I was really helping major healthcare players think about how do we design with the consumer at the center. Then I decided, okay, it's time to go back to school. I'd done all that operations work in my career, early career, and I was ready to influence the strategic direction that a company could choose to take. So I went back to school, got my MBA in strategy at NYU Stern, and went into healthcare consulting, where I advised the largest global brands, including Fortune 10 clients like Walmart and others, on how to really fix this healthcare system and apply disruptive innovation strategies to really deliver care in new ways. So I got a chance to work in a variety of settings, right? And I found something, I noticed something along the way. Here I was, right? Here I was at the height of my corporate executive career, but my own wellness was at the lowest point, right? So I had been on this mission to honor my mom's legacy by fixing the broken health system. And now I realize that my own health was ultimately in shambles, right? So you never know the value of the sparkle in your eye until you've lost it, right? I was experiencing burnout, but I didn't really recognize, I didn't have the language to call what really for me looked like my hair falling out in clumps. Okay. It's just coming out by the handful. I'm having these heart palpitations that are keeping me up at night. I'm having this terrible knee pain, which is slowing me down as I'm trying to run to catch a flight in the airport. And one day I walk past the reflection, right? I see my reflection in the mirror. And I realized that I'd lost the sparkle in my eyes, right? So it's like the lights were on and nobody was home. And so that burnout, right? That feeling of exhaustion, not being able to concentrate, it really took me, a while to recognize that I needed to raise my hand and say, I need help, right? But when you're a superwoman, you're used to pushing through. You don't even think about it. You just keep hustling, you keep grinding, right? Until one day I get laid off from my dream job. Got laid off from my dream job, and I'm at a crossroads, right? Because here I can either go left and continue down that churn and burn, or I can decide to go right and really take that 20-year background in health and wellness and pour all of that energy that I had been taking care of the well-being of others to really pour it back into myself and figure out how to come back to life again, right? So as I mentioned, I had to raise my hand and say I need help. Okay, so meet Dan, right? My whole philosophy is always about teamwork makes the dream work. Dan is a retired firefighter. He was part of my dream team when I decided to take charge of my health. And he worked with a lot of people who had different backgrounds, right? Whether they were recovering from injury, right? Or have different levels of ability. I had a really bad knee injury, right? It was hard for me to stand for long periods of time. He helped me rebuild from the ground up, right? So I realized if he knew how to save lives, right? If he knew how to save his own life as a cancer survivor, perhaps he could help me figure out how to savor my own life, right? And so little by little, you see me in here with those boxing gloves, okay? Because kickboxing was my thing. It was my thing. And that was how little by little we rebuilt my strength until I could one day, right, begin to reclaim my health, right? So here we go. So look at this, right? Look who got her sparkle back. Look who got her sparkle back. I just, piece by piece started figuring out, right now I've got more energy. What does it look like to design a dream life, right? What might it look like for me to design a dream life in where I'm able to center my own well-being, right? This is a major shift because as women in leadership, right, we're so used to taking care of others, wearing multiple hats, that it's hard to shift and pivot to figure out how do we take care of ourselves? How do we center our own well-being? So I got a little taste of that, right? I got that sparkle back, started to get my swagger going, and I said, I want more of this. So I launched Idem Spark to empower other leaders, right? Empower busy professionals to slay their work-life harmony goals, mind, body, and swagger. So today I'm going to walk you through a little bit about some of those shifts that I made in my career and how my 3-step mind, body, swagger approach has really helped other busy professionals and powerhouse women to figure out how to take charge of their health as well. So Idem Spark is here to help you shine in your work-life harmony journey. Just a little bit about what we do. We do one-on-one executive coaching. We have group coaching events called Swagger School. I'll share some information about that later on today in case you would like to join us at our upcoming session on May 19th. And we also do corporate wellness consulting, right? So I found myself in the pandemic pivoting back to my corporate wellness roots. So I'll share a little bit about that story as well. Okay, so let's start with the first step in the process because I shared with you that we have this 3-step mind, body, swagger approach, 3-step process, right? The first piece is all about leveling up your mindset. Leveling up your mindset. This is all about shifting your paradigm. So how many of us are in outdated paradigms that no longer serve us, right? Outdated paradigms that no longer serve us. I just talked about how I reclaim my health. One of the old sort of myths I had to overcome was this idea that I had never been an athlete, right? I would tell myself this all the time. I would say I've never been an athlete. Growing up, I was always the biggest one on the playing field. I would come in at the end, when they would have races, right? And I had to go back and re-examine that, right? Was it sports that I didn't enjoy, or was it not being invited to play in the game, right? Or worse, being put in the game, but on the bench, right? Not being able to play sort of on the starting line. So I think as women in leadership, right, we often can relate to that experience, right? So how do we see ourselves? How do we create a new vision for how we see ourselves so that we're not putting ourselves on the sidelines of our own lives, right? How do we make that shift? So leveling up your mindset starts with doing a comprehensive self-assessment, right? What's going right in my life today and what is not going well, right? What do I want to change and what do I want to do differently? I would argue that we all in the middle of this pandemic have had a wonderful opportunity to pause and reflect, right? It hasn't been easy. Maybe you too have dealt with grief, loss, right? You've been going through struggles and challenges as you've been juggling all of the different responsibilities. And you've had an opportunity to say, what no longer serves me, right? In my career, in my life, what no longer serves me, and what do I want to do differently? I think a lot of times when folks come to me, they have a really clear picture on what they don't want. You know, they're really crystal clear on what they don't want, but what they haven't done is taken a moment to pause and envision what they would like to see, right? What they would like that future self to be. Who do you want to be as a woman going forward? What do you want your leadership path to look like, right? How do you really define that vision for yourself so you have a crystal clear image of what it is that you're going after in order to achieve it? So this is all about helping you focus, helping you prioritize, right? When you're overwhelmed and not sure what to tackle first, right? This is a really crystal clear path to give you a vision for how do you amplify your health as you advance your career, right? So this is all about having the energy to go after your goals. For me, this was a major shift, and I've seen it be a shift in the lives of my clients as well. So meet Michaela. Michaela was a multi-passionate boss, right? She was busy building her empire, and she really had to figure out, how do I build without burnout? Right? How do I build without burnout? One of the biggest struggles when you're building, right, as an entrepreneur, and you're stepping out of maybe that transition from corporate to entrepreneurship, is to define, like, how do you create a culture of wellness, right? What does it look like to center your well-being when you're so busy playing different roles and taking care of others, right, as you're juggling to grow your career? And so with Michaela, it was really powerful for us to really work on focusing her mind, right, shifting her mindset so that she could really think about new ways to thrive in the middle of a pandemic, right? We've got a lot of barriers, right? We maybe haven't been able to get to the gym as easily, right? We don't have access to sporting arenas and theater events and live music, those places that would have normally recharged us. We haven't been able to take a vacation, right? So working with Michaela, it was really important to really get intentional with how we make time for wellness, how we focus, right? And make sure that that's a priority so that she could focus on the long-term, not the short-term gain. So a lot of times when folks are thinking, I can't take a day off, right? I can't ask for help. It's all sort of that short-term thinking, right? That short-term thinking that is focused on what I need to do right now. But when you think about sustainability over the long haul, it's what are the patterns and systems and strategies I need to have in place to really ensure that I reach and achieve my goals over time. So for Michaela, it was really a major shift for her to think about, how do we get rid of that old idea of work-life balance and more so shift towards this new concept, this new paradigm that I call work-life harmony, right? So she was able to sort of get through that. And for her, it was ultimately very life-changing, right? The second piece of my framework, the Mind, Body, Swagger framework, is all about embodying your goals, right? Embodying your goals. So I talk a lot about this because I've made some pivots in my career. I, early on was doing operations work and wanted to shift into strategy work. And I think a lot of times when people are navigating shifts in their career, they tend to get so mired and fixated on what they've done in the past. Do they have permission to play in this new space? How do they actually navigate this career transition and this career changing or career switching when they're moving into a new space, right? So for me, it's really important to think about not just those tasks on a resume that you sort of check the box on, former roles and titles you held, but also what you aspirationally want to do, right? So it's almost a proactive personal branding piece that you've got to be thinking about to tell a compelling story for other folks who might want to engage with you. So one of the things I did, and I know we're here live on LinkedIn as well today, is I went through my LinkedIn profile. When I was making that shift from operations to strategy, I went through my LinkedIn profile to say, does this reflect the type of work that I want to be doing, right? I started looking through job titles. I started to follow people that I admired who were doing the work that I was so passionate about, to see the language that they were using to describe that work. And then I used that, right, to retell my story. And so I think for those folks who are thinking about making a powerhouse pivot, right, you've got to not just think about where you played in the past, but where you want to play in the future, and be able to do a little bit of that mental gymnastics to help people understand how to navigate that shift. I think another piece that was really challenging for me was navigating from corporate to entrepreneurship, right? From corporate to entrepreneurship. So really, for me, I would say, and for many folks of color, right, or folks who come from families of immigrant backgrounds, right, it's unusual for us to really be so open to share our stories, right? If I would go into work on a Monday and they would say, "How was your weekend?" I would just say, "Fine." It's fine. I wouldn't say what I was up to, what my hobbies were, what my passions were. I would just be fixated on the work and think that my work needs to speak for itself. But as you're advancing in your career, right, for me to get up that corporate ladder to become ultimately an executive or as an entrepreneur, your ability to rise up that ladder, or your ability to navigate that entrepreneurial jungle gym, is directly tied to your ability to own and tell your story. And so that was another shift that I had to figure out, to think about, how do I tell my story in a more effective way? And so a lot of this work I pulled from my business strategy background. I pulled from my background in disruptive innovation to help people figure out how to disrupt themselves, right? So how ironic it was that I had built my career in disruptive innovation, and now I had to figure out how to disrupt myself. And so I support leaders who are making similar transitions and going after similar powerhouse pivots, to make sure that they have concrete and actionable strategies, right? So that they can go after not just their professional ambitions, but their personal ambitions as well. Because I think sometimes those tend to fall behind the wayside. And that means really thinking about reimagining your identity, right? When I got laid off from that dream job, and this is one of the reasons I was so thrilled that Danette invited me to speak today, is because I'm passionate about this space, right? Of how we shape our identities. I didn't realize how fixated I was on my job title, that was such a big piece of my identity, working for a prestigious firm, right? So in many ways, after the layoff, I felt I had a bit of an identity crisis. It felt naked in a way, or exposed, right, to not be able to have the ability to hide behind a title. And so I had to figure out, in order to embody my goals, I had to figure out, who am I, right? What am I about? Why am I doing this work? Get clear on the mission and purpose, and then get a concrete and actionable strategy to get there. So I'll share another client story as well. My client, Melissa, right, who's a coaching client of mine, she had been told, she wanted to get promoted up that corporate ladder, and she was told it couldn't be done, right? Nobody had ever done it that fast, right? And so for her, it was really about saying, no, what do I need to do? A lot of times when you surround yourself with folks who perhaps may project their fear on you, or may project their own limitations on you, right? You have to see yourself bigger than they see you, right? And you have to surround yourself with others who believe in limitless possibilities, not just limitless possibilities, but will shine a light on the path for how you need to achieve those goals, right? And so for her, it really helped her turn those goals into tangible results, right? What does it mean to accelerate my pace, right? To move in the direction that I am after, in terms of a targeted goal. And then how do I really put those dreams into motion? Because a lot of times this is the difference between dreamers and doers, right? You've got folks who will be daydreaming about that next step, but be afraid to take that leap, right? And so really combining both powerful mindset work, but actionable strategies, was really what sealed the deal for Melissa to be able to achieve her goals, right? So it's really important to think about, who are you surrounding yourself? A lot of times folks will say to me, I don't have a mentor, right? How many times do we hear this? Especially if you are the first, right, in your family to maybe graduate from college, the first to become an executive, you're the first or the only one who looks like you on that executive team, right? A lot of times we don't have many examples, right? Or mentors, internal, maybe even sponsors, to help us navigate and achieve those goals. So how can you take charge of your career, right? By engaging with a coach, by engaging with other folks who maybe have taken that similar path, who maybe don't sit inside your organization. How can you build a dream team that can propel your dreams forward, right? So that is a big piece of really embodying your goals, is saying, how do I design, right, a dream team that can support me in achieving those goals? And how do I go from being in the passenger seat to the driver's seat of my career? So, so powerful, and an important shift to be making, right? Finally, we have the rocking your unique swagger. Okay, I'm not called the chief swagger officer for nothing. A lot of people come to me because they want to pump up the volume on their swagger, right? And I just shared my story of really going from burnt out to fired up. So I've been in that situation where my swagger hasn't been right on 10, right? Those times where I doubted and questioned, right, myself, and had to sort of rebuild my confidence. And so I use that framework to help others who are navigating similar shifts, right, as you're elevating your career game, to overcome some of those limiting beliefs, and also to create a game plan for how you go about owning your identity by pumping up the volume on your confidence and leading with an authentic leadership style that is aligned to your unique identity. So part of this, I think, is when we hire, and I do a lot of corporate consulting work, folks will generally look for culture fit, right? They'll say, did this person go to school with me? Do they talk like I talk? Did they grow up where I grew up, right? What we really need to be hiring for is culture add, right? What is your special sauce, and what are you bringing to the table that differentiates you and sets you apart? I've done a lot of brand strategy work with some of the largest global brands, and I have never heard a brand say, we want to blend in on the shelf, right? Make us as beige as possible. We'd like to blend in on the shelf so we don't stand out. No, brands want to distinguish themselves. They want to differentiate themselves to make it easier for you to choose the product or service that is most relevant for you. The same is true for your personal brand. And I think this is the hardest, right? For a lot of folks who are in traditional environments, maybe they haven't been seen, they haven't been valued, right? They've had to sort of strip away aspects of their authentic identity. And so it can be hard to figure out how to be yourself, right? And what aspects of your story you want to pull forward to share to make more meaningful connections, right? And to propel your career forward. So this piece about authentic leadership, this piece about really rocking your unique swagger, is not just for fun. This actually ties to tangible business results, right? My degree as an entrepreneur, the degree of success that I was able to achieve was directly tied to my ability to tell my story. And so now I empower clients to do the same, right? So what does that look like? What does that look like? Here's my client, Stacy, right? So before we met, we did a swagger sesh together, a one-on-one power consult. She was hiding, right? How many of us are hiding in plain sight? You might be on LinkedIn right now hiding, okay? You've been lurking, you've been consuming content, but you haven't really been sharing your voice, your story, your distinctive point of view, right? How do you go about positioning yourself as a thought leader, right? How do you go about setting yourself apart, especially when you're trying to pivot into a new space? I often talk about this push versus pull strategy, right? A lot of us hear about this underground job market, right? Where those jobs may not be posted. It's who do you know? A friend of a friend that puts your name in, especially as you're going into those executive roles, right? You're tapped on the shoulder. Well, how do you get tapped if nobody knows that you exist? How do you get tapped if you are the best kept secret? This is all about how do you proactively tell your story? How do you proactively own your unique identity? And how do you proactively create a personal brand that can allow you to be seen, heard, and valued? And so after we worked together, Stacy was able to begin sharing her story more proactively, stepped up her visibility, and began selling daily as an entrepreneur, which means that she's making and earning more money. And so it's important to think about, when you want to be rocking your swagger, right? What aspects of your story do you want to share? How do you want to really be able to relate and connect? And what are the areas of your personal brand that you want to be showcasing, right? And I find that this is one of the biggest stumbling blocks for folks who find themselves hiding from their own ambitions, is to say, what is my story, right? What are the aspects of the story that I want to share? And how do I truly own that, right? So I think, Danette, we've covered a ton of ground. I wanted to save a little bit of time for questions as well for folks, if folks have questions on how we sort of navigate this terrain, but would love to hear your feedback as well.
I love it. You have highlighted and just shed a spotlight on a lot of things that we've been discussing over the past year. And I love it because I always love when our presenters say stuff that I've been saying so I'm just not like mama, just keep saying, like, but yeah, I really love it. I think many of us, marginalized folks, BIPOC individuals, get into a situation in the workplace where we believe and it's a myth. It's one of the myths that I talk about all the time, but we believe that it is enough to just go into the workplace, be quiet, put your head down, and work really, really, really hard.
Yeah.
Right? My work is going to speak for me. And many times it's 5, 10, 15 years in before someone realizes that, yes, you are the best worker, but you've not excelled. You've not been able to move forward. And that was highlighted a lot during this pandemic, as we began to talk about being fulfilled and doing work that matches our level of not just ambition, our level of ability, forget the education, but that too, right? But that we're doing work that speaks to us wholly. We've been talking about that for a year now. So I love that you have come to shed some light on that. So guys, I'm going to go to my fun questions. You guys are out there. I see you. We're not getting many questions, and that's okay. But if you have any, this is the time to drop them into the chat. I'm going to remove the share screen. It's just going to be me and Anniedi up here, guys. Okay.
Okay. And I wanted to respond to your perspective as well on, how do we shift from working hard to actually sharing more proactively? And I think a lot of times people struggle with this, right? Because maybe they've been at a company for 20, 30 years, right? And now all of a sudden they've got to, figure out how to navigate that pivot. And so a lot of times it's unnatural, right? It's a new skill that we're having to flex when it comes to making a powerhouse pivot. But here's why I think it's important for us. And I don't think entrepreneurship is for everyone, right? Some people are built for it and some people are built for traditional roles. But it's more about what you value, right? What's most important to you. But here's why I think everyone can be an intrapreneur to a certain extent, right? I believe that the future of work is going to shift to more of a high-level gig economy, right?
Yes.
A high-level gig economy where we're going to have less of that traditional employer-employee relationship. We're going to have more of that decentralization of labor. We're already seeing it now in the pandemic, where companies are competing across state lines and in many cases across geographic boundaries. You can see how this virtual and remote environment is only accelerating that shift, right? So what does it look like when now your company can really recruit from anywhere? They have access to the best talent, right? Your ability to actually own your personal brand, to proactively create a platform and generate opportunities for yourself, limitless possibilities, that will directly be tied to your success in the future. And so I think really starting to flex some of those skills and get more comfortable with owning what your gifts and talents are and then how you communicate them effectively, I think this will be tied to the success of individuals in the future. So I wanted to share that because I definitely was nodding my head when you were saying we all need to kind of navigate that pivot for ourselves.
Yeah. And I'll say this one you said about the people who are lurking on LinkedIn. There are many, many, many lurking on LinkedIn. It's funny how people will tell me everything I've posted over the past year on LinkedIn, or a lot of what I've posted. But it may have taken them. I just met with someone on, when did I get back? Friday, today's Sunday, who told me that they had been following my content. They were connected to me, but they've never, that I know of, made an insightful response to anything that I posted. Maybe they liked some things, but at the point where the person reached out to me and said they'd like to meet, I didn't know who they were. Right. And I pretty much know everyone who is responding to my content consistently. And the person was dealing with a lot of confidence issues and still trying to figure out, what should my presence be? What should my brand be? The person has a doctoral degree, so on the surface, this person looks like they would be able to own their brand, right? And protect it and demonstrate it and let everyone know what they're good at, be able to, rattle off that elevator pitch, and they're not. And many people are like that on LinkedIn. And we are trying to just help them get past that hump. So I'm going to leave that alone. I just love that you hit on that, because I say it And, we have our regulars in CDPD who we always say it. And I love when other people are coming to just reiterate that it is true. I'm not just, like telling you this urban myth. What do they call it? Urban legend. It's real.
Oh, you're speaking my language. I had a client who was in academia as well, studied neuroscience, had a PhD program that was ultimately sort of halted by the pandemic, right? Because all of the research on human studies was put on hold and suspended, and she had to pivot. She had to figure out, what's my next path? How do I monetize my skill set? So you would think these are the brightest minds, right?
Yes.
Some of the brightest minds. And so it's a new way of thinking to actually be able to monetize those skills, right? To take on a business mindset, right? To think of yourself as the product, right? That is a major shift from a traditional path to tenure, or other sort of climbing a traditional corporate ladder, right? So major shift happening just as a function of the times we're living in, right? So folks, in order to maintain their relevance, are having to really sort of think on their feet as the ground is shifting beneath them. Absolutely.
Yes. And Ashley, I see your question. We're going to go to it right now. I just want to highlight, we have Eric James Stevens. I don't know if you're connected with him, but I will connect the two of you because he is a former rhetoric professor for, I think, a decade, displaced through the pandemic, and then just realized, you know what? I don't know how to work in a regular workplace, right? That's non-academic. But what he did around the time I founded CDPD, he founded higher ed. And he is not just teaching people from higher ed how to demonstrate their ability, their hustle, and how they can be viable in a traditional workplace. He's also working with employers to see the utility and value of having someone from academia, which I love. And he's now a data analyst at Gaggle, I think. So he made this total pivot, and he loved being a rhetoric professor. He loved his work, but he realized that the world changed and he had to change with it. So, hi, Ashley. I'm going to put your question up here. Thank you for joining us, Ashley. So Ashley's joining from Philadelphia. And knowing there are a lot of things I do well, how do I figure out what to brand outside of the typical hard worker, personable, etc.?
Ashley, I love that. I love that. So in order to answer this question, we got to tell the story of how Danette and I met. Okay. We got to tell the story of how Danette and I met because we were on Clubhouse. Okay. We were on Clubhouse and I heard her story. What she was doing at Corona Days Professional Development Group. And I was moved by her story. Right? I was moved to learn more about her mission and to figure out ways to collaborate. And so for you too, you got to shift from what you do to why you do it, right? What is your overall mission and purpose? Why do you do the work that you do, right? Helping folks to understand and make those connection points. You've also got to get clear on the difference between what you do well, between what you love to do, right? Because sometimes those things are two different things. Sometimes, like when I was trying to shift from operations to strategy, I disappointed a lot of people because I was good at operations, right? If you wanted something done, you came to me to get it done, right? We were able to sort of execute and move things through, right? From ideation to execution. And the same is true for you. You got to figure out, how do you navigate, that space between what you've done historically and what you want to be doing, and how do you make it easier for people to find you? So that exercise of kind of going through, I call them swagger stories. We're going to be going through them in Swagger School this week on Wednesday. We go through swagger stories to figure out, going back through your work history, right? Where were those areas where you made the biggest impact? What are you most proud of in your career, right? What are the things that maybe don't show up on your resume that you've had to overcome and that you've navigated that really make you tick, right? You got to proactively figure out how to tell that story, because I'm going to tell you right now, hard worker gets results. That ain't it. Okay? I've seen it over and over and over and over again. And we want to figure out, no, what's your special sauce, right? Figuring out so for me, I had to go back after a layoff and not having a job title, right? I was going to all these networking events. The first thing people ask is, what do you do, right? What do you do? I had to figure out, well, what am I passionate about? What lights my soul on fire, right? Like I had to figure out, okay, as a child, right, growing up, I used to love to sing, right? After my mom passed away, I didn't sing so much. I had to bring that back in to really open up that creative energy, right? To remind myself of what it was that lit me up. And then when I was able to replicate that, right, whether it was through launching a nonprofit, to get more women into the C-suite, right, in the health tech space, because innovation is an area of my passion. Those are the things where you're able to flex out. So I think that sometimes, we think that internships end, right, when we're in school. But there are so many ways to test and experiment and incubate new roles, try on what fits, right? Even when you're in a traditional role or you're in a season of transition. So Ashley, I hope that that was helpful to you to help you kind of understand, how do you define your story? Storytelling is such a big piece of how we connect with others. So to really sit down and begin to craft your personal story, your personal brand story, I think will be really beneficial as you're looking to navigate your career.
I love it. Thank you, Anniedi. And Ashley, connect with Anniedi. Maybe you will go to one of her sessions, or maybe you'll have a consultation and see what happens. And Ashley, his name is Eric James Stevens. If we are connected, or no matter what, send me a message on LinkedIn and I will connect you with Eric directly. All right. So let's see. This is a comment. And I agree with you, Trina. I definitely agree with you. We have in our group, in Corona days, I realized very early on that I thought we were going to have more unemployed people. No, we had more underemployed or unfulfilled. So, you were right, Trina. Most of our people who came to our group initially, they were unemployed or they were scared, job security. But really quickly, and within the first 90 days, our membership was probably 70% people who were working. And some of those people who were working had the salary. They had a decent salary. They were not fulfilled. And people were losing their lives in front of them daily, right? So we're in this pandemic and people realize that life is short. And it's up to me, the individual, to make it sweet. Yeah. And they were not, and me myself too, just were not operating in a place of fulfillment or where life was sweet. So yeah, we are, I think many of us, because of the pandemic, Trina, are moving from position to purpose.
Absolutely. And what's so interesting, Trina, as well, we're finding that depending on sort of the demographic, shift, right? A lot of folks are willing to, take a pay cut even to work in a company or to do work that is more aligned with their values, right? That is aligned to really their purpose. And so we've seen a lot of that in this season, is that folks are saying, I want to make a bigger impact. Yes. I want to have greater influence. Yes, some are saying I want to have more income, right? But a lot of folks who are coming, they're saying, I'm already making the six figures. I'm already achieved a certain quote unquote level of success. Now I want more. Right? It's how do you go from dream job to dream life? So completely agree.
Yes. All right. So Kehinde, I hope I'm saying your name right. And thank you for joining from Nigeria. So yeah, you may be cousins, long lost. You never know. But actually, we may be cousins. So I know I'm West African. So how do you differentiate between showing off and putting what you do out there? Yeah.
I get this question so much. Thank you so much, Kehinde, for that question, because I get this so often, right? A lot of folks say, I don't want to talk about myself. I feel like I'm bragging, right? I feel like I'm showing off in a way. And I sort of push the envelope there, right? Because when we get back to the why, which is what we were talking with Ashley about, it's who are you trying to help or empower, right? How can you make it easier for them to find you, to discover you, to understand what it is that you're trying to do in the world? For me, that is not bragging or showing off. That is telling your story. Nobody can take your story away from you, right? And so I think we have to really give ourselves permission to stretch our definition of what it means to show up for ourselves. A lot of times it's very easy for us to show up, for a company, right? In our role, to do our work on a daily basis. But how do we give ourselves permission to show up for ourselves, right? And what you will find is in executive roles, right? you're being asked to do that, right? That's part of the brand building. That's part of the relationship building that you're doing at those senior roles. And so you got to start flexing those muscles regardless of where you are in your career, because the success of the company you work for or the business that you're running is directly tied to your ability to be more visible and to show up and to build meaningful connections. And so telling your story in whatever capacity, right? That might be a podcast interview. That might be spending time on Clubhouse. That might be on LinkedIn, connecting and sharing your point of view about what's happening in the market, right? Your degree to be able to engage in some of the most pressing matters that are affecting all of us, in this time, is going to be directly tied to your career success. I can't stress it enough. So yeah, we got to break through and sort of reframe the narrative on that, right? That this is a part of and a function and an expectation, right, for us to perform at a new level.
Oh, I love this. I have so many clips that I'm going to have from you. Yeah, I used to write as you guys were talking, and then post the quotes up. And I might do some of that, but I love making the videos because I think they're very effective. And you've given me at least 4 already. Another thing I will say on that, Kehinde, we have one of our early presenters in the group. She was first generation college grad, Mexican American parents, and she did very well, got scholarships, went to grad school, became a water engineer, and then wanted to help other first gen, right? So she would go to schools and talk to students and was doing this on her free time and even taking some time off of work to do it. And she just started talking about it on LinkedIn. She didn't tell her job. She was just talking about the experience and posting some pictures of herself at the schools. And that increased her visibility. Her CEO saw it. And it opened up a whole nother pathway for her at work. So now she, on top of being a water engineer, she actually is leading this community engagement effort with her organization and has so much visibility because she was doing something that spoke to her heart, and she spoke about it. So there's so many ways that we can demonstrate our greatness. You can come on here and talk about your excellence on CDPD as we highlight professionals of excellence. That's a way you can demonstrate your excellence too.
Jeanette, you are just that testimony right there, that testimony. So that was my biggest pandemic pivot, okay? Let me tell you what happened in the middle of this pandemic pivot, because I had great dreams, okay? Visions of grandeur for launching my new business in January of 2020. It was going to be a live events business model, okay? I was going to do retreats, getting the human, right? Making wellness more human. Well, the pandemic had other plans, okay? Because February, the pandemic hits, March, the world shuts down. And I have to figure out which direction do I take this business in, right? So at the same time, my best friend was in education, okay? She has an education background, former New York City high school principal, with a former teacher, had started an education and equity consulting firm around diversity and inclusion. Schools were shutting down, right? So we were looking at ourselves like, where is this all going to go, right? We decided to start a YouTube channel, okay? We started a YouTube channel, and we called it a pretend podcast because, it wasn't on Spotify or iTunes. It was just a YouTube channel where we were talking about, we called it the Wild Wild West of Adulting. Where we were 2 entrepreneurs navigating the uncertainty and possibility of pursuing life off the beaten path. So the whole concept was this virtual road trip where we were in real time processing what was going on for us as entrepreneurs, watching small businesses shut down, watching the world really be turned up on its head. Do you know that it was a very popular channel, I want to say. We had 10 subscribers. Okay.
Hey.
Well, we weren't as cool as Danette now. Danette had a whole bunch.
No, it's not even like that.
We had 10 subscribers.
Hey.
Okay. One of the 10 subscribers was a global head of people.
That's all you need.
At a legal services firm who saw what we were doing and said, "You two are good together. Okay, would you come and bring your wellness, her diversity, inclusion, equity? Would you come to our company and develop workshops and training programs to help us navigate this shit?" So I say all that to say, you're sitting there saying you don't want to brag, but part of just sharing, right, you're passionate about your point of view, invites other people to the conversation and creates possibilities, creates opportunities that you would not have imagined. So for me, I teach a course on business strategy. I teach a strategic planning course, okay, as an adjunct professor, And I have never, right, found more great joy than when I surrendered to serendipity, right? Because as a planner, I love to have all my next steps mapped out.
Yeah,
But
that's
you
me.
cannot, right? You cannot recreate those moments, right? Where you open yourself up, you share your story, and you invite others to collaborate and partner with you. So I just had to share that.
Yeah, I love it. When the numbers don't matter. I tell people, oh, the numbers don't matter. Many people who follow CDPD and me know our story, but one thing about our story, and Teresa, I see it, I'm gonna post it up in a minute, is a woman I was not even connected to. She was connected to Elvin Freitas, and they had her in the Ed Up Experience, which, guys, plug, catch my Ed Up Experience podcast. It just released yesterday. They had her on the show. And then he said something like, connect with this woman, Nicole Merrill. And I connected with her. We never actually had a Zoom. We did it ultimately. But before we even had a Zoom, she nominated me for the most innovative career coach of 2020.
See that?
With the Business Insider. She just, through him saying, connect with Nicole, I connected with her. She read my profile. We connected, but we did not really physically connect. She started to follow my content. She didn't even join our group at that point. It was just on LinkedIn. She followed my content, which my content was always talking. I would post about you. Now I don't post about you. I post a video. So I used to say, hey, Anniedi came this week and she did this is what she said. So I was, then one day she just tagged me and it said, the Business Insider is looking for the most innovative career coaches of 2020. And I nominate Danette Edwards. I was like, we need to meet. Okay. So you never know who's watching you.
Exactly.
And I can't say how many doors the Business Insider has opened up for me and for the group and our group members. So you never know, guys. Get yourself out there. Just put it out there and do it scared. Okay. Do it unsure. Do it scared. Just do it. All right, so here we go. Therese Nelson says, Anniedi, I'm getting my whole life with your presentation. You lifted up this idea of a changing professional landscape post-COVID, and I'm wondering if you have any insight around how much negotiating successfully is about fitting in and how much is creating new rules. I'm asking because in my industry, so many best practices have become arbitrary, and with so many new ways to engage, it gets overwhelming to know where to focus your energy. And Teresa's, I don't know which one she's talking about. She has like a lot going on, but she's a master chef.
Yes.
She's a master chef. Yes.
Okay. I love that. Okay. So you're cooking up all the goodness, Therese. I'm here for it because I am a foodie. So yes, your question about how much do we want to fit in and how much do we want to create new rules? Well, I think you might know the answer because my background is in disruptive innovation. Okay. So I'm not okay with the status quo. I am about setting the trend, right? I am about creating a new path forward, creating the future that we want to build. So when I talk about the future of workforce well-being, it's creating what we cannot see today, right? So it's really important for you to think about what is your distinctive point of view, right? Your framework or approach that you're using to solve some of these problems. How are you owning that, right? From an intellectual property perspective, right? Thinking about thought leadership that you're putting out there, right? So it's really powerful, I would say, to really distinguish yourself by your approach and your voice and your distinctive point of view, rather than trying to sort of fit into outdated paradigms that no longer serve us. That's it in a nutshell.
Therese, I said it, I wrote it, but I'm saying it. You and Anniedi need to sit down. Therese is also a culinary historian, a writer, a keynote speaker all over the world in the Ivies like you. She's just like I said, I wrote it. She's like one of the most brilliant people I know. And she's a friend. So you guys need to connect and put the heads together. All right. So guys, if you have any more questions, go ahead, or comments, please drop them. I don't have any right now, so I'm going to go to my 2 fun questions, and then we'll go to my real questions.
Okay.
So, pineapple or mango?
Oh, I got to do mango.
Okay.
Mango, yes.
And this is I don't know if this is easy because you're like upstate New York, right? Okay, New York or North Carolina? Which?
Well,
If upstate New York.
I lived in Brooklyn for 10 years, so can I get a little street cred?
Oh, okay. I'm just saying, like, I wasn't saying it like that. I know it sounded bad. I
Yeah,
was saying
you
it
were like,
like,
you're from upstate.
yeah, like,
I lived in Brooklyn, okay, for
I was
10
saying it
years.
like upstate New York, the scenery is a lot like North Carolina is what I was saying. Like
You're
that.
correct.
So
That's
yeah.
correct.
So okay, so New York City, North Carolina.
Oh,
Which one?
hard. I mean, here's the thing. I built my career in New York. I mean, that was where I originally found my swagger. I think North Carolina has been wonderful because there's a more expansiveness, right?
Mhm.
There's space to dream
Especially
and
you with
be,
the health.
so I think that it has been
One
great.
of them you can say both.
Yeah.
Only one question you can say both.
I'm torn. I have to say both.
All right.
Just,
Guys, you got that? That was her both. That was Anniedi's both. No, but North Carolina makes a whole lot of sense for you.
It's beautiful.
Considering your undergraduate pursuits,
Mhm.
right? The medical. Are you near the triangle or the health triangle?
We're about probably 2 hours.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So guys, I'm going to my regular questions.
Okay.
So first question I ask everyone. So our mission here at CDPD is that we want to increase. We work with marginalized and BIPOC groups, and we want to increase their access to employment opportunities and representation in the workplace by providing our members with free training, mentorship, and other resources. So, marginalization is not just the typical or the stereotypical definition of marginalization, okay? Because we find in our group that people have been marginalized because they think a certain way, they approach work in a certain way. So there are other ways that people are marginalized when they're working on their career in the professional space. Mm-hmm. So as I say that, I'm going to ask you the question, which is, if you in your professional life have ever been marginalized, if you wouldn't mind sharing an example or that experience.
Mm-hmm, sure. I'm going to share 2 examples because I think they both highlight 2 sides of the same coin, right? So since I started sharing the story about my mom, right, she was the first entrepreneur I ever met, really. I mean, when we were younger, we got teased by the neighborhood kids for not fitting in, right? Because we were of African heritage, right? And so they were trying to figure out why you roll different, right? Why do you look different and active? And we were kind of in between those worlds. And so my mom founded the Center for African Fashion and Cultural Awareness so that we could use music and dance and storytelling and created a stage where we belonged so that we could teach others about creating inclusive cultures. So I really just have always been thinking about that perspective of the other because I've lived that experience. And so I would say it's fascinating working in wellness because even though I built my career 20 years, right, becoming a corporate wellness executive, I didn't see myself reflected in wellness, right? As a plus size woman, right? As a woman of color, I didn't see myself, my identity, right, reflected in wellness, right? When you're hearing, wow, that food you grew up eating culturally, right, isn't quote unquote healthy, right? Like, what does it look like to really center the needs of people who may not, right, have been considered in the design of those products and services? So I say all that to say the very things, right, that set me apart, that were what made me be more powerful, right, when it came to product development and innovation, because I could see around those corners. I could understand what the unique needs and wants and desires of those customers who hadn't been served, right, to be able to design and develop a new world, right, that was more human-centered. So I say that marginalization happens, right? We, oftentimes may find ourselves being the first or only in a leadership environment, but how do we use that difference, that culture add, right, to be able to really set ourselves apart and use that differentiation to really win, right, in a competitive environment. So that's my soapbox. I mean, I could go on topic forever. I think there's so much there, but I think it has been such a big piece of my identity as an entrepreneur, but also just what shaped me, right?
Yeah, no, I love it. It's interesting because, so we asked the question, not as a woe is me, right? We asked the question because you were able to use and your mom, right? And you taking your mom's example, were able to use experiences of marginalization and turn them on their ear and make them work for you, right? Many people are not able to do that. And they may get stuck because of an experience of marginalization, or they may just give up because of it, and so when we have people come on and say, yes, I've been marginalized, and it may not be the same experience that a viewer has had or a member has had, but the fact that in spite of marginalization, and yet he was able to do this and then this and then that and then that, I get more response to this question than any other question in my inbox is from people who are viewing who say, I understand what Anniedi said and it's helped me. I've also had on the flip side, someone from the dominant culture, this only happened once, contact me, it's been in March, so it's 2 months ago, contact me and say, the experience, if it was you, Anniedi, would have said, what Anniedi described, I was the person marginalizing Anniedi, right? Not, I do that in the workplace, but I'm an ally, but I do that. And thank you, because I didn't realize that I was marginalizing someone, people when I did that. So even though that was never the intent for the question, I love the fact that that person was brave enough to say that to me. And I hope that it's helping other people to see that maybe some things that they're doing are not right. Then the other thing I'll say on that, not to stay on it too long, but we had Shelton Banks came and said something very similar to you, how he took his situation of being marginalized. He was at Groupon in tech sales, and they were giving him like bad territory or whatever. And he said, you know what? And he just went all over to South Side, Chicago, and just like turned it out. So he said like he was getting Groupons for places that had like security bars on the wall, on the windows. And they were like, who's gonna use that? He's like, they're gonna use it. And he ends up turning like these humongous commission checks because they were putting him in this area where they thought he was, and he just like turned it out the box. So much so that now Groupon realized that, hey, there are dollars in this Black community that we need to strategically go after, right? So I love when we're able to do that. And guys, I hope that question has today, that answer has helped some of you. I know it has. All right, this is my favorite question.
Okay.
And guys, remember, if you have any comments or questions, you have to drop them now, because after I ask this question, when I go to the last question, that is it. If you can go back in time to a younger Anniedi, what would you say to her? Knowing everything that you know now, what would you say?
Wow. If I could go back to a younger Anniedi, what would I say to her? I think a lot of times when this question is asked, we think about childhood.
Be last week.
I will go back to the day I found out my job was no more, right? Because for me, I had taken so much pride in my work. I had, felt that I was fulfilling my mom's legacy in my work. I had so much of my identity tied into that role, that title, that I thought, the day after that life was over, right? That my career had ended, that there was no other alternate path, right? Because I was so bought into that corporate ladder and climbing and achieving success in a very narrowly defined way. And I would say to my younger self, which is only a few years ago, right? I would say there is life after this. There is life after layoff, right? There are new mountains to climb. There are new hurdles to overcome. There are new rewards to be realized, right? If only you believe in yourself, right? Because here I was thinking I'd lost everything, but I hadn't lost me.
Yeah.
I hadn't lost
the most important thing.
And so I think that question you asked about the marginalization, it's like a lot of times we're waiting, pick me. But in many cases, we have to pick ourselves, right? We have to give ourselves permission to pick ourselves first. And so for me, that was life-changing. The experience was life-changing. It was humbling. It gave me a greater sense of empathy that I had not, ever experienced in life. And now going forward, right, I just have a whole different perspective than I had up until that point. So I would say that would be my guidance to my former self.
Oh, thank you. And it echoes, many people have said something similar over the past year, about their layoffs. I think it is because we are just trained from youth that our work is us. When one of the first questions people say is, what do you do? Even in a social situation, like, well, you need to know what I'm at a wedding. You don't need to know what I do for a living. I came here with my mate, right? Like, so you're not trying to get with me. What does that mean? That doesn't mean anything. But we're just, indoctrinated that is what defines us. And so there's so many people still who don't know who they are outside of their work, and they're trying to figure that out. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, guys. I don't have any more questions or comments, and that's okay. So I'm going to go to my last question. Kehinde, yes. I'll send you the links, but yeah, you can catch this again on LinkedIn replay. Everyone, you can catch this on a replay, LinkedIn, YouTube, and then in our Facebook group, but I'll send it to you. I'm sorry you're having network issues. All right, so this is our final question. This has been amazing. You're welcome to come back too. If you ever want to come back, do anything, let us know. You have to send me the information for your Swagger School. What is it?
Yes, if you want to share the screen, I have a special gift for your listeners as well. So
okay, perfect. And then send me. Oh, good. So I've linked up. Your link is on all of the postings, but I'll repost it in the group as well. Perfect. And if you have an image of this, send it to me.
Yes. And I just wanted to thank you so much for the invitation, Danette, to come and share my story, share my point of view on how we can rock our careers, mind, body, and swagger. And as a thank you to your audience, I definitely wanted to share a savings code, CDPD50. Will give you 50% off. Our Swagger School event is coming up this Wednesday on May 19th. So if you're thinking about making a powerhouse pivot, you want to start creating your swagger stories and figuring out that concrete roadmap to get to your goals, definitely do feel free to join us and use that code before May 18th to be able to join us.
I love it. Well, Therese has signed up. I hope you waited for the code, Therese.
I know. Therese was on it. Okay.
I love it. Yeah, I think you guys are going to vibe very well. All right. So yeah, send me the visual and I'll repost it, both LinkedIn and in our group. I'll post it everywhere. All right. So I love it. Like I said, you're welcome to come back. You want to try anything out with us, come on back. Just don't give me what you sell because I cannot pay you yet. There will be a day where I'll be able to pay you, but it's not yet come yet. Okay. I just bought it before the code. I was too excited. Oh, Therese. Okay. All right, you and Anniedi, you can
we'll work it out.
You guys will work it out.
Yes.
Our final question is, and you may have already done this, if we had one takeaway from today, what do you want us to walk away with?
Yes. So I always share my motto. Our motto at Idem Spark is, life is a song, your body is your instrument, play it like no one's watching. And I think this is huge. We talked a little bit earlier today about how do we showcase our story without showing off, right? How do we tell our a little bit about ourselves, own our authentic identity? And I think it's so powerful to stop worrying about what the shoulds are, the expectations that others have for you in your career path, and start tuning inward, right? To say, what do I really want? What do I want more of? And then build up the courage, the confidence, the swagger, right, to go after it. So really thrilled to be with all of you today, and excited to see where your journeys lead you.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much for coming this afternoon, this beautiful Sunday afternoon. All right, guys, you know how this goes. If you found any value in today's presentation, all you need to do is share it, right? So wherever you are, just share it. You don't have to tag anyone, although you could, right? So you don't have to harass anybody. You don't even have to send it into their inbox. Just share it on your social media platform so that other people can get value from today's discussion. Please connect with Anniedi. I hope she comes back. before I'm able to pay her. I hope she comes back. And again, Anniedi, thank you. I really appreciate you. And to everyone watching, thank you all for joining us. God bless you and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Yes. All right. Let me hit the end, which I always have a problem doing.